Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, it's episode 3 of the mystery reviews. And this movie came out exactly 10 years ago to this day. So, I figured, sure, I will do a review for this movie. Now, I'm going to wait for a couple of people to get in here. And before I do, I got to adjust something really quick. Turned it wrong. So yeah, now that I'm back and with dirty glasses, I'm gonna wait for a couple of people to get in here before I start giving my hints to what this movie may be. The major hint is that it came out exactly 10 years ago today. And most people who know me would know to look at a specific genre of movies, especially May 6th, 2011. So hello to anybody who is in the chat. Thank you for dropping in and swinging by and all that loveliness. What is my battery on? 81. I should probably plug that in. But yeah. So let me see. Anybody in the chat? I see one person is watching. And apparently I'm getting my new thingy today. That's awesome. But yeah. So I see one person in the chat. Say hello. Don't be shy. The first hint was that it was 10 years ago today. The second hint is that it's a growing up story. The main character has to basically grow up. So if you can guess out of the second or the first and second hint, you're probably going to get it right. How you doing, Jade? Good to see you. So the third hint, you know what? I'll actually, yep. Let me see if I can get it, because I did say it was part of a series. Or did I? It is part of a series. So I will say which number the movie is in as soon as I look it up. Okay, so it would be the fourth movie in the series. So yeah, it would definitely be the fourth movie in the series. There's 3 hints. May 6th, 2011 was when it came out. And I can actually remember the day of May 6th, 2011 when I went to see this movie in theaters. Every minute of this movie actually kept me captivated, because this movie has such a brilliant score, a great director, very good acting, in my opinion. It has a legendary cast. You were in Iraq. Good to see you, Jade Shadow. And, well, I wonder if they had it in the theaters there, because I'm pretty sure it was widespread. And also this movie, I will give you another hint, Paramount also helped release it. That should be another huge hint. So it's a growing up story. May 6th, exactly. Ah, right, no theaters on the base. It was fourth in a series, or shall I say phase? That should be the giveaway. But basically, yes, folks, if you haven't guessed it by now, I'm pretty sure somebody will. Now, this movie does have what's known as a time-stamped beginning, where the scene in the beginning takes place later on in the film. And then they go back to do an intro, basically. So, if you haven't guessed it by now, I am reviewing the first Thor movie from the MCU. And when I say that this movie kept me captivated every minute, it did. It honestly, well and truly did. Because at the time, the Marvel movies were starting to get into full swing. I had already enjoyed Iron Man, Hulk, and Iron Man 2, and was looking forward to Thor when it came out. And when I went to the theater, I sat in that theater, had my bucket of popcorn, and I'm like, okay. And after the scene where Jane is looking for whatever she is looking for, atmospheric anomalies and whatnot, and then Thor arrives and Kat Dennings is driving the van and they argue over the wheel and they end up hitting him. It comes to a very brilliant narration by Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins is literally one of the most legendary actors still alive today. And him being cast as Odin was honestly one of the best choices I have ever seen in a casting. Because he has the wisdom, he has the range where he can be fierce, where he can be loving, where he can be compassionate, but he can also be stern. And all of those play a very big role in this movie. Also, the de-aging technology that they had for Anthony Hopkins was very well done. He was digitally de-aged. And I'm like, okay, that works, yeah. Let's do it, yeah. So when he basically does the narration once, mankind accepted a simple truth, that they were not alone in the universe. Some realms they believed to be the home of their gods, and other realms they knew to fear. And then you see the introduction of the frost giants who attack Earth, and then you hear a build-up in the score. Now, the score by Alan Silvestri, holy crap. This score happens to be one of my favorite scores in the entirety of the MCU's first three phases. Thor 1 had a score that was very percussion heavy, where you could feel it. The brass and the horns and whatnot, it was a very emotional soundtrack. And as Odin goes over the war between the Jotun and the Asgardians on Earth, where you see the back and forth, where Laufey is slaughtering the Asgardians and Odin is doing the same to Jotun, is after Laufey gets him in the eye, that he's like, okay, enough of this shit, and you just see him bring out his full power with Gungnir, his spear. A lot of people honestly do not know the name of Odin's spear, Gungnir. It is a cousin to Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. They were both forged in that dying star, Nidavellir. So, yeah, good to see you, Butt Crack Media. Love the name. And hello to the others who are watching. So, when Odin or Anthony Hopkins is narrating, and they get to the casket and they show the withdrawal from Jotunheim after they force. Yes, Kenneth Branagh did direct it. That was going to be another hint. It was directed by a very narcissistic Harry Potter, or by a very narcissistic character in Harry Potter. But yes, Kenneth Branagh did a freaking phenomenal job with this movie. A lot of people say that that the first phase was not as good as the second phase with Winter Soldier and whatnot. I'm like, you honestly do not know what you're talking about. Because phase one, the Paramount, or which was from Paramount, they showed the grittiness. They showed that this was a story-driven movie, and the other ones too, Captain America, Iron Man, and Iron Man 2, they weren't heavy in comedy. They weren't heavy in drama. They were balanced. And that is the wonderful thing. They kept it great with a good balance, and it worked. The first phase of Marvel's MCU was honestly, in my very humble opinion, the best, because it showed that they were very serious about bringing these characters to the big screen for people to enjoy, and they wanted to do it right, and they did it right. So when Odin says, and with the last great war ended, we withdrew from the other worlds and returned to our home eternal. When he said that, I'm in the theater just fully captivated, and I'm like, Asgard. And I said that directly when Anthony Hopkins announces it, Asgard. And I'm like, whoa, that's like butterflies in the stomach creepy, but awesome at the same time. So this is where the score of the movie really picked up. As I said, folks, I am going to go over the score from Alan Silvestri and Thor 1 a lot in this review because it just freaking works. How the percussion, how the emotions, you get an emotion that it's like hope, but it's also wonder, and it's also pride. It's a hodgepodge of emotions all mixed in, and it's very positive. And they had to choose today to go outside and start making noise. Jesus. But anyway, when he's talking to his son, he's like, and though we may have fallen into man's myth and legends, it was Asgard and its warriors that brought peace to the universe. And you see the young Loki and young Thor. And I gotta say, these two kids looked a lot like Tom Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth. And you know that in this movie had great characters set up and built. The world building was also very well done. Where you see, or where you learn about Asgard, you learn about Jotunheim, you learn about Earth. Well, we all know about Earth, but anyway. So he's showing him the casket, and he's like, now a day will come when one of you will have to defend that peace. Now this basically is saying, or suggesting, that he hasn't made his choice of who would be the ruler, but it also does. Hold on one second, folks. Jesus. Hey. 1 second, folks. I'm back. I'm sorry about that, folks. Tell me if you can hear the droning in the background, because this microphone is supposed to have noise cancellation. So please let me know if you are hearing what I'm hearing, which is basically a lawnmower outside. But it's now more distant, so it's probably no longer heard. But anyway, so he's basically teaching his children, Odin. And it is still a wonderful scene where you get the feeling that Thor, well, when I'm king, I'll hunt the monsters down and slay them all. You know that he's battle thirsty. He wants to grow up and be a warrior like his father. And Loki, he asks the pragmatic question, do the frost giants still live? And, well, the answer is basically, yeah, they still live. But a wise king never seeks out war, but he must always be ready for it. Now, these kids are very well done, did a very good job being kids, first off, but they also did a very good job with the acting. You get the feeling that these two kids have been together, they're brothers, they play together, and you see the look that they give each other before they race to their father. And you also get the jealousy or the really just know your role from the kid who plays Thor. When he says, I'm ready, father, to be king, and Loki comes up and says, so am I. You actually see young Thor go like give a look over at Loki like, you really don't get it. You're not going to be king. I'm firstborn. So you get that Thor, even as a young kid, had the ego. He had, well, the privilege of being the firstborn. And even Odin says this. Only one of you can ascend to the throne, but both of you were born to be kings. And that's a hint for later on in the movie. Now, then we automatically skip forward a few years, but you also get a lovely establishment of Mjolnir being in the vault. Mjolnir was already made, which comes to play later on in the MCU. I swear to God, riding mowers are the worst. But anyway, the setup of the coronation for Thor, where you see Thor just complete egotistically accepting or walking through the coronation hall, and where he's hyping up the crowd, getting them all, he's like, yeah, come on. And you actually hear the crowd or the fanfare increase at that moment. You see Odin looking at him like, I'm seriously questioning whether or not I should do this. But the time has come that he should be the one to take over. Odin, by this time, is actually getting close to his Odin sleep, you know? And Thor is just, this was supposed to be his greatest triumph. And he gets up, he puts his hammer down, he kneels, he takes off his helmet, he winks to his mom, and his mom's trying to tell him, tone it down, So then Odin gets up, pounds his spear, and you get the fact, it's all psychologically done very well. Where he starts going, Thor, Odin's son, my firstborn, my heir, long entrusted with the mighty hammer Mjolnir, and the wisdom in his words, its power has no equal as a weapon to destroy or a tool to build. It is a fit companion for a king. And then they go to the vault, where as Odin continues his monologue, and you see the different items that are in there. And then you see that a frozen hand is acting, where an all-seeing eye literally pans over to look at that point, which was actually very well done. You see the Ironjar, I cannot pronounce it very well. But yes, you see how they are handling it, or are not handling it, inspecting the vault, basically. That's their job. And we get to Odin doing the three oaths. Will you protect, or do you swear to protect the 9 realms? I swear. Do you swear to defend the peace? I swear. And do you swear, this is Odin's biggest and most wise test to his son, do you swear to cast aside all selfish ambition and pledge yourself only to the good of the realms? When Thor lifts up his hammer and says, I swear, in victory, basically, that's not, or you can basically tell he's not going to uphold that. He wants to be king. He's not ready, but he still wants it, you know? And Odin's ready to proclaim it. He has made these oaths, and he can easily undo these oaths if he has to. But he does sense that the frost giants are in his vault, and they have killed the Iron Jarl, and they are going for the casket that Odin took from Jotunheim to keep them from going all over the 9 realms, causing chaos. So he summons the Destroyer. The entrance of the Destroyer, when I saw him coming out of the white, or out of the light behind a disappearing gate, it's like, oh shit, that thing looks massive. And these are giants. Frost giants are not even as tall as the Destroyer, because they all look up, they're like, what? So the Destroyer kills that one, and as it's killing the second one, you actually see an Infinity Gauntlet, which is cool, which is very cool to see. I'm like, what? Now, I will fully admit, later on is when I noticed it. When I saw it in theaters, I did not notice the Infinity Gauntlet. But it was a very cool add-in. It's basically the greatest hint that you will get in Phase 1, that this is where it might be going. So the Destroyer comes in, and you see that Thor is truly just not ready, because Thor, Loki, and Odin go and inspect the vault, and Thor's just battle hungry. He's like, Odin should pay for what they've done. And Odin, in his wisdom, they have paid with their lives. The Destroyer did its work, the casket is safe, and all is well. And Thor just doesn't want to take that. You get the acting between them. Thor is like, why the hell are you so freaking calm about this shit? And he's like, if they had gotten one of these relics, they didn't. Well, I want to know why. They just broke into the weapons vault. I have a truce with Laufey, king of the Jotuns. And he's like, he just broke your truce. So Odin tests him. What action would you take? March into Jotunheim, teach them a lesson, break their spirits like you once did. You're thinking only as a warrior. This is an act of war. This is the act of but a few doomed to fail. Look how far they got. It is a brilliant back and forth. The way that they do that, he's like, we'll find the breach in our defenses and it will be sealed. And this is where Thor oversteps as king of Asgard, and his father has to remind him, you're not king. Not yet. He's trying to teach his son. He's still trying to teach his son, and his son just doesn't want to hear it. That stings him more than anything. And so, yes, in the next scene, he tips over the table. He tells his brother, it's not wise to be around me right now. This was supposed to be my moment of triumph. I was supposed to be king by now, basically. And his son, or Loki, we all know, is a trickster. So he does the whole play on Thor's emotions and be the trickster, you know? If it's any consolation, I think you're right. About Laufey, about the Frost Giants, everything. I mean, if they've managed to get in, who's to say that they won't do it a second time? Exactly. There's nothing you can do without defying father. And, you know, like, he tricks his brother into doing something stupid as the Warriors 3 are coming in. Now you see the Warriors 3 are established in the coronation, but you don't know exactly who they are, but you do understand that their placement during the coronation means that they are important. And the casting for the Warriors 3, Josh Dallas, Tadanobu Asano, and Ray Stevenson for Hogan, no, Volstagg was Ray Stevenson. He was the perfect person to play Volstagg, I swear to God. Because Volstagg is always after meals. He likes war and he likes eating. Sometimes both at the same time. I'm pretty sure that he would go into battle with his axe and a huge freaking drumstick of meat, ripping into that meat while he is slicing down enemies. That's the kind of air that Volstagg gets. And when he sees the mess hall just, well, a mess, he's like, what is this? It's a tragedy. Basically, you see an extended scene in the deleted scenes, and he's like, oh my God, this is such a tragedy to let all this stuff go to waste. You see him looking at the food. It's like, what a waste, what a waste. And you get establishments of who these people are. Because there's like, madness? What kind of madness? Because Thor wants to go to Jotunheim, and Loki tells him it's madness. And he's like, we're going to Jotunheim. What? This isn't like a journey to Earth where you summon up a little thunder and lightning and the humans worship you as a god. This is Jotunheim. And he then introduces the characters by name. Fandral, Hogan. Who was the one who led you into the most glorious of battles? You did. And he got to Volstagg, who led you to banquets so succulent you thought you died and gone to Valhalla. You did. And then he gets to Jamie Alexander, who plays Sif very well in this movie and in The Dark World. Her character was played very well. Even though The Dark World is not the best movie, her acting was very on point. She was always looking for Thor's affection in the second movie because, well, she does kind of get jealous of Jane. But anyway. And he's like, who all scoffed at, or who laughed at all those who scoffed at the idea that a woman could be one of the most fiercest, or who proved wrong all those who scoffed at the idea of that a woman could be one of the greatest warriors ever known. And Jamie Alexander's like, I did? True, but I supported you, Seth. Now, they have a little bit of cattiness and campiness, but it works in the situation. Kenneth Branagh, his directing, and he's like, he does multiple takes. You can tell that by watching the special features of movies and the featurettes and watching the final cut. Because in the featurettes, you hear later on between Thor and Odin the vain, cruel, or the vain, greedy, and cruel boy line, where you hear him saying it totally different than in the movie. So they go to Jotunheim to basically, well, find out what's going on. And at first, yes, it's merely to find out what happened, how'd they get there. It's like, but the introduction of Heimdall, and a lot of people are like, nowadays it's like, well, some people are claiming that the first phase is woke. I'm like, how is it woke? Because Heimdall's black. And? He's white. He's Norse. I'm like, true, in the comics and in Norse mythology, he is projected as a white person. But here's the thing. They didn't make it, or you don't hear Idris Elba's character, Heimdall, being like, I'm black. No. You just see him portraying his character. So the people who want to try claiming that it's woke, well, you can take that shit elsewhere. It's not going to fly here. It really isn't. Because at the time and of the culture, well, yeah, women were renowned as warriors, very few and far between, but they were still very strong warriors. Sif earned her place. Also, something that's not shown in the MCU or explained in the MCU. Sif and Heimdall are actually siblings. So that's interesting. But anyway, Heimdall is the great seer and hearer of the universe. He is the protector of and gatekeeper of Asgard. And his voice, they modulated in the first movie. In the second movie, they didn't. And in the third movie, they didn't. And I'm like, bad consistency. That is the one thing I wish they had still did in the second and third movie of Heimdall, his voice being modulated to a lower degree. Because if you pay attention to it and even watch an extended version of a scene later on, you will hear the difference in Idris Elba's voice. His voice is not his voice, or, well, his normal voice in the movie as it is in a deleted scene. So the journey to Jotunheim is a brilliant one where you learn about the Bifrost, the gate or the Rainbow Bridge, and how they explain it. He's like, be warned, if your presence threatens or if your return threatens Asgard, I will keep my sworn oath as gatekeeper. If your return threatens the safety of Asgard, Bifrost will remain closed to you, and you will die on the frozen wastes of Jotunheim. And Volstagg, being basically the audience, is like, why can't you just leave the bridge open? To leave the bridge open would unleash the full power of the Bifrost and destroy Jotunheim with you upon it. And as Thor, he's like, I have no plans on dying today. None do. Heimdall, you get, is very stoic, and you understand that this man sees and hears everything. Now, there is a scene that is deleted that is explained later on in the movie where Loki tells a guard something, or Loki tells a guard to go to Odin. And it is where they're saddling up to go to the Bifrost, where you actually see Thor having a conversation, and you see Odin or Loki in the background talking to one of the guards, basically saying, as soon as we leave, you go to get Odin right now. As soon as we ride out, you go to Odin to stop us. Well, fortunately, it didn't work because, well, yeah. But I do love the introduction to Heimdall. He's like, because Loki's going to try lying to him. Good, Heimdall, you're not dressed warmly enough. The way that he is just so stoked. He's like, you're not dressed warmly enough. He's not even looking at Loki. But he also suspects Loki is behind one of his failures. And when he says, never has the enemy slipped my watch until this day, you see him cast his look over to Loki. And then he says, I wish to know how that happened. It is a beautiful moment. It's also a telling moment. This movie literally has minute details that make the movie better by a larger degree. So when they get to Jotunheim, it's good establishment. It's like, okay, we're here. Where are they? Hide, as cowards always do. So then Laufey introduces them. He's like, you've come a long way to die, Asgardians. Well, he thinks they're there to fight, which basically they are. And they have the whole back and forth. How'd your people get into Asgard? The House of Odin is full of traitors. And you got to understand, Laufey, who's played by a brilliant actor, Colm Feore, he stands up and he's like, your father is nothing but a murderer and a thief. And why have you come here? To make peace? You long for battle. You crave it. You're nothing but a boy trying to prove himself a man. He sees through Thor so perfectly. It's like, why would you come here with warriors if you are here just to find out facts, you know? And yes, they start coming in, the Jotuns, and it's like, okay, How you doing, Junebug? Good to see you. And he's like, you do not know what your actions would unleash. This is a very weary and broken king, but one that is still very angry about having his power and his glory stolen. And he's like, go now, while I still allow it. Now, of course, one of these idiots had to frickin' taunt Thor, run back home, little princess. And Loki's like, damn. And then it kicks off the fight. So you get to see the Warriors 3, Sif, Loki, Thor, all fighting. Thor is just enjoying it. It's as if, well, it's almost as if somebody kind of predicted it. Laufey did predict it. You long for battle. You crave it. Which it's true. Thor is, believe it or not just a god of thunder in Norse mythology. He is also a god of war. There are more than just one god of war in Norse mythology, folks. I mean, Baldur is not the only god of war. Thor is a god of war. Even Odin is a god of war. He is the All-Father, yes, but he also is a war god as well because he has fought in many wars and, well, war follows him because of him being the All-Father. Now, that's plugged in. We see this battle. It's well choreographed. You see how Hogan fights the Jotun. You see how Fandral is a very swashbuckling character. And you see Volstagg is a very tank-like character. And you also see how Sif is very swift. That rhymes. But anyway, you learn, or Volstagg gets grabbed by the Jotuns, and you learn that they have a very burning touch, or rather freezing touch, but it burns because, well, it's very cold. It burns. Don't let him touch you. And then you see that Loki gets grabbed, and this is a wonderful little mystery moment. It's like, okay, what the hell is going on here? His armor shatters, and his hand turns blue. He's as shocked as the Jotun that he just stabbed, because the Jotun is on his knees after he just got stabbed by Loki's dagger, and you see the Jotun. He's like, looks down, looks up, and you see the look on this Jotun's face. He's like, what the hell are you, basically? So he then gets killed, so Loki finishes him off, and his hand goes back to normal. Loki's visibly shaken by what just happened. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. But then it gets further, and Laufey has had enough, so he unleashes his hound, which was frozen. And Fandral, who was still doing his dashing swashbucklery, gets stabbed from an attack by one of the Jotuns behind him. And he gets it through his shoulder. So they have to start to withdraw, but Thor's just too caught up in the battle. This basically is explaining to you that Thor shouldn't be king because Thor is he just wants to fight. He's not ready. This is Thor's fault, basically, because, well, it's also Jamie Alexander's swing. Yeah, that was, yeah. And as they're running, they get chased by the dog, and there's this wonderful shot where the dog is running, or where the ice hound is running underneath their feet because Thor summoned some lightning and busted up the landscape. So you then see it running underneath them, and there's this shot where Hogan is running and trying to dodge all the falling ice, and you see the ice hound run underneath them. So it's like, okay, this thing's going to head him off. So when they call for Heimdall to open a bridge, doesn't happen. Their return to Asgard, or their return is threatening Asgard right now. They got Jotuns in hot pursuit, and they got that big freaking monster. So yeah, it's kind of danger to bring them back. So Thor does his little Superman through the mouth, and all the Jotuns turn up behind him. Really? Now you guys are using the weed whacker. Jesus. But anyway, so they're about to basically slaughter Thor and their friends, and this is when, I'm sorry, folks, I am just like taken out of this because of the people outside. Jesus. This is when Odin comes back in, and you see another beautiful shot where he is on the eight-legged horse, Sleipnir, the one that is Odin's steed, and can literally run across the Rainbow Bridge without Heimdall's advance. Now, you then see immediately two kings. Well, all right, let's talk this out. So Laufey goes up to him. He's like, "Oh, father, you look weary." And the back and forth between Odin and Laufey is one that is very telling. He's like, "Laufey, end this now. Your boy sought this out. You're right. These are the actions of a boy. Treat them as such. We can end this here and now without further bloodshed." Odin is trying to keep the peace. He tells his son to be silent because his son is like, "Father, we can finish them together." He's like, "Silence." And so he's like, "We're beyond diplomacy now, all father. He'll get what he came for, war and death." So he has to basically save his son's ass and bring him back. And the fight between Odin, it's not a fight like fisticuffs, it's a fight of words. It is basically Odin has to lay down the law. And Thor is just tired of it. He's like, "The old ways are done. You would stand by giving speeches as Asgard falls." Now, the scene that I did tell you in the special features that was done differently, where Odin basically says, "You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy." He yells it in the movie. In the special features, you hear a different take of it, which is the brilliance of Kenneth Branagh, where you see Odin basically just saying, "You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy." But there is only one take of Chris Hemsworth that is shown, and he's like, "And you are an old man and a fool." The way that he just snaps back at his father. This is all you basically need to know. Thor has overstepped. And the emotion of this scene, where Odin looks down, he's like, "You're right. I was a fool to think you were ready." Well, Loki does try to step in, and his father, he's like, fist out. He's like, "Ah." He's like, "Arr!" He's basically telling Loki, "Back off, or you're going to follow suit." And when he banishes his son, this is one of the hardest things that he does, because you hear him, or you hear it in his words. This is one of the best acting I have seen from Anthony Hopkins, with a lot of emotion. "You have broken the express command of your king." His voice is literally cracking. "Through your arrogance and stupidity, you have brought the 9 realms to the brink, or to the horrors and desolation of war. And you now learn that Gungnir can also be used to activate the Bifrost." A lovely plot point for later. Minute detail, but still important. And when he goes up to Thor and strips him of the discs on his chest and the cape, "You are unworthy of these realms. You are unworthy of your title. You are unworthy of the loved ones you have betrayed." And then he takes his hammer. "I now take from you your power. And in the name of my father and his father before, I, Odin Allfather, cast you out." And he blasts him out. Now, a lot of people always thought that anybody could lift the hammer before this moment. Not true. However, there was, or the decree of Odin. Well, Anthony Hopkins is classically trained stage actor. If you want to be a good actor, go to the stage. You're right, Junebug. You're absolutely right. Now, this scene with score and all is also very impressive. You hear a very repetitive score throughout this film, but it's still a score that is very high emotionally filled and also very well done. The score between, or the battle scores, the score of, or that is done softly in tone in one scene, higher in tone in another. I wish I could honestly play the score for you folks, but I do not want to get a copyright strike on my channel. But you know the one, or it's basically, you hear that a lot in the movie in different tones. Softly in some scenes, very prominent in other scenes. And you hear in this scene when he gets cast out as well. So then we get up to date where he's sent to Earth and Odin puts the enchantment, whoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. And you see a wonderful thing about Mjolnir in this movie that is not done in the later movies, where when Darcy and them are gone and they drag Thor off, you see the hammer fall or come into a crater. Then later on, as the guy goes to pick it up, you hear a thrumming. As soon as he puts his hand on the hammer, you hear Mjolnir start to hum, like a vibration kind of humming, but it's not vibrating. This is Mjolnir in a semi-sentient state. Mjolnir is literally testing the worthiness of this person, reading this person's heart when he goes to grab it. And it's like, you are not worthy, and you are also not the one I'm looking for. You're not meant to have this. Be gone. So as it's like, nope, you are not the one that's meant to hold this. Be gone. And they get to the hospital. Thor has to learn, or Thor learns very quickly after he gets overpowered that, well, he can't really be, or he's not really a god. And also the back and forth scenes on Asgard, where you understand that Loki is still trying to come to terms with what's going on with his hand, while the Warriors 3 are talking about Thor's banishment. He's like, they're like, he's been banished, and well, at least he's been banished and not dead, which is what we would have been if Odin had, or if that guard hadn't told Odin where we'd gone. How'd the guard even know? I told him. Loki just comes right up and says it. I told him. What? I told the guard to go to Odin after we'd left. He should be flogged for taking so long. We should have never reached Jotunheim. And he tells, or Sif tries to plead with him, you must convince the Allfire to change his mind. And if I do, then what? What's to stop this from all happening again? You saw, I love Thor more than all of you, but you saw how he was today. He was angry, he was reckless, and he's dangerous. Is that really what Asgard needs from its king? And he leaves them. Now, yes, everything everything that Loki says is very measured. It's very it's measured, but also on so many different levels. He's saying this to be manipulative. He's also saying this to basically flog it in their face that he's also hurt. And Sif calls him out. He's like, he may speak of the good of Asgard, but he's always been jealous of Thor. And this is where Hogan, in his stoic wisdom, he's like, Laufey said, there were traitors in the house of Odin. A master of magic could bring 3 Jotuns into Asgard. And they all look at him and they're like, Loki's always been one for mischief, but you're talking about something else entirely. Well, the thing is, Hogan's actually right. And it's so beautifully freaking done. Tadanobu Asano is a very stoic actor. His acting is just well done, especially in this movie and a few other movies that I've seen him in. He did not do good as Raiden. I'm sorry, but Raiden is not a pessimistic prick like he was in the Mortal Kombat movie. But Tadanobu Asano did do Hogan very well. So then we learn that Loki, he goes down to the casket and he grabs the casket, and Odin stops him. Am I cursed? And as he gets stopped by Odin, and the camera pans to see that Odin is behind him, you see the blue creeping up up his hand and up his neck. And he's like, am I cursed? No. What am I? You're my son. And you turn around and see that Loki has Jotun skin and red eyes. So it's a very revealing thing. What more than that? The casket wasn't the only thing you took from Jotunheim that day, was it? No. And he explains in the aftermath of the battle, he went into the temple and found a baby who basically was one that Laufey raped a human woman. It is basically implied. And in the aftermath of the battle, I went into the temple and found a baby, small for a giant's offspring, suffering, or alone suffering, left to die, Laufey's son. And as Odin is holding this baby, you see it revert to a more human look. And Loki is visibly, the emotion in this scene also works. You see that Odin is trying to be measured. He's trying to still protect his son. He's like, why did you take me? You were an innocent child. No, you took me for a purpose. What was it? I thought I could unite our kingdoms one day, bring about a permanent peace through you. But those plans no longer matter. And you can also see that Odin is getting closer to weariness, because when you hear Loki's like, so I'm just another stolen relic that you are just waiting for you to have use of me. Why do you twist my words? And he's like, you are my son. I only wanted to protect you from the truth. Why? Because I am the monster that parents tell their children about at night. And Odin is falling into his Odin sleep because he is too weak. A lot of people all think that gods are immortal. No, they're not. They just live longer. But also, Odin has lived longer than most, and he is approaching his twilight. So he goes into what is known as the Odin sleep to literally rejuvenate himself. So he falls into the Odin sleep as Tom Hiddleston brings out a wonderful performance. He's like, it all makes sense now why you chose Thor over all these years, because no matter how much you claimed to love me, you could never have a frost giant sitting on the throne of Asgard. And he says it so with such venom in his voice that he's not even realizing that that Odin literally just passed out before him, until he now realizes that his father is not responding. So he calls the guards for help and whatnot. Now, back on Earth, Darcy, Natalie Portman, Kat Dennings, and Alexander Skarsgård. Alexander Skarsgård did a wonderful job in this movie. Natalie Portman and Kat Dennings, I know that there's a lot of people who think that they are the weaker points of this. Honestly, Natalie Portman did a wonderful job in this movie. They are there for slight comedic effect. How are you doing, Rambling Doc J? Good to see you. And you get the impression that, well, Darcy is definitely there for comedic effect. They go to the hospital, or after they realize that the man that said his name was Thor just came out of that wormhole from their readings, well, they have to go to the hospital and find him. Well, he's no longer there. He kind of fought his way out and broke or got out of the bonds by slipping them. How does somebody slip those bonds? I've actually been restrained like that, folks. You can't slip them. So yeah, that is kind of weird, but it's still fun. It just goes to show that Odin or that Thor can also be sly, you know? Or just jumped in. Thank you for jumping in. Rambling Rambling Doc. So yeah, my mystery review, I'm reviewing Thor. And from the MCU, it came out 10 years ago today. So they're like, we find him. Okay, well, Darcy's putting in another charge to her taser, and as they start backing up, they hit Thor again with the freaking vehicle. And Natalie's reaction, what? It's like astronomical that she would hit him again with his vehicle or with her vehicle. So it's like, I'm sorry, I swear I'm not doing this on purpose. It's a comedic moment, but it is done very well. And so it jumps back to Asgard. The cutting in this movie is actually very well done. It shows that Kenneth Branagh and the producers and the editors know what they're doing, because there's so much importance in each scene in a time and an order that they must go in, and it was done pretty well, perfectly, where they jump back to Asgard, and basically the Warriors 3 and Sif feel that they need to talk to Odin because they feel that maybe it is true that Loki may have been the one to bring the Jotuns into Asgard, you know? Well, they find Loki on the throne, and you learn that Odin has fallen into the Odin sleep, and Mother fears he will never awaken. Now, this is Loki basically saying the truth, but putting mischief behind it. Wonderful thing about somebody who is a god of mischief, he can tell you the truth, but he can put his spin. You can just feel the spin behind it. Stellan Skarsgård as Baron Vladimir Harkonnen in Doom. Interesting. I am looking forward to Dune to see how well they do it, but it's not really on my high importance list. But basically, yes. I honestly didn't know he got cast in that movie. Interesting. But yes, he tells them, he's like, you can bring your urgent matter to me, because they want to speak with Frigga, because, well, he's literally the one who they are accusing of treason. And oh, great. So it's like, we would speak with her. She has refused to leave my father's side. You can bring your urgent matter to me, your king. My king, we would ask that you end Thor's banishment. My first order cannot be to undo the All-Father's last. Our people need a sense of continuity in these times. Okay, yeah. Can't talk right now, folks. So, mute for an hour. So yeah. Oh yeah, it has an all-star cast. I'm looking forward to it because I'm a huge fan of the books, and I really want all of those books to be adapted to the screen. Yeah, that's fair. I have not read the books. I have only seen the 2000 Sci-Fi Channel Dune movies and show, which had what's his name from Wanted in it. But yeah. Anyway, back to this thing. Basically, Loki is telling them the truth, but he's also mocking them, or using the truth to mock them. We all need to stand together for the good of Asgard. And that triggers Sif, and they stop her. Yes, of course. Okay. And he's like, good, then you'll wait for my word. And he's basically very dismissive. He doesn't, or he wants them to Loki wants them to understand, I am now in charge. You all are either going to look to me as as the king, or, well, you can get the hell out. He's relishing in his newfound authority. So when Volstagg tries to interfere, he's basically like, we're done. And when Sif is staring daggers at him, Loki literally, he's like, he's like, okay, you want to start? He looks right back at her. He's like, problem. So she just leaves. It is a good, tense moment that basically tells you they're not going to listen to him. So then in the chamber of Odin, where he's in the Odin sleep, you hear that Frigga and Loki are talking. I can never get used to him like this. He put it off for so long that I fear he might never awaken. Basically, is what Renee Russo, another great freaking actress, says. She's like, he put it off for so long that I fear. She doesn't finish the rest of the sentence. And so Loki asks her, why did he lie? And she told him, he didn't want you to feel like a cast out, basically. Can I ask if you ever add Junebug or others to StreamYard, or just read the comments? I have brought Junebug on, I believe. I have brought others on, yes. I do paneled discussions for movies and paneled versus streams and whatnot. And sometimes I also do random streams where I bring people on. So yeah. Also, folks, as the scroll says, please feel free to drop a like, subscribe, share this stream out. And yes, stay humble. So, Jim Carrey, I only can't see that. I remember reading an interview that Tom Hiddleston bases his performance on 90s Jim Carrey movies. If you pay attention, you can actually kind of see it. In a way, yeah, The Mask was kind of based on Loki, mischief, you know. And yes, in some ways you can if you do actually look at it. So, Renee Russo, Frigga, tells Loki, he's like, your father cares for you. And you have to understand that he did what he did to protect you. And we must keep hope that your father will return to us as will your brother. What hope is there for Thor? There's always a plan behind your father's actions. Well, this kind of pisses off Loki because he doesn't want Thor to come back. Now, you get to the scene where everybody is out by the crater. They're trying to lift up the hammer. You see a couple of guys try to lift it. One guy kicks the mound and whatnot. You actually see the mound move because it's a prop mound. So that's a small movie mistake. But objectively, I still put this movie about a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. There's very little wrong with this movie. Even the special effects work today for the most part. I mean, only the Hellhound is basically the worst CGI in this movie. It really is. Now, as for where are we? We're basically getting to the diner. Yeah, I only asked because I dig chatting and always try to get people to jump on my streams. Hey, same here, man. I still love it having people on, but my mystery reviews are just me reviewing and going through my thoughts on the movie. Now, also going through the movie. Now, the scene in the diner where they're trying to ask Thor all these questions, or what were you doing inside that storm? And yada yada. And then Jack Dennings, and how could you eat a full box of Pop-Tarts and come here and still be hungry? This drink, I like it, right? It's wrong. Another smash. And, well, not everybody on Earth is accustomed to the Norse or the Norse drink or the Norse culture or cultural expression of I want another. Well, maybe you should not smash things and whatnot. It was good. I want another. Well, you could have just asked. I just did. You smash your goblet because, well, they couldn't clean it. I guess. I don't know. But anyway, you get the picture or where Darcy's like, okay, this is a doorbell. This is going on Facebook. Smile. He smiles, and that picture comes to play later on in the movie, which which comes when he raids Shield. Well, Shield also shows up at the crater. We get the cameo from Stan Lee where he's driving the truck and the whole tail end of his truck just comes off when he's trying to pull or wench the hammer out. And he's like, did it work? They're all laughing at his ass because he just wrecked his truck. Stan Lee in the earlier Phase 1 movies was by far his best performances. They were quick, they were witty, and they worked. You know? It just was perfect. Stan Lee is truly missed, and I also will say this, how his people treated him before he died was very wrong, and I hope that they are held accountable with many years of prison time. But yes, then Coulson shows up, and everybody is then showing up, or one of the guys at the crater is like, I have my hands all full of these government types started or turned up and started taking over the place, said it was radioactive. I had my hands all over. What did it look like, the satellite? Well, it was heavy. Nobody could lift it. And this tells you that, or Thor's reaction, he knows exactly what it is. So he gets up, he's like, which way? About 50 miles west of here. So they basically hear, or he leaves and he's going 50 miles west of here. And they're trying to, he's like, so what, you want a satellite now? It's not what they say it is. So what? Well, the government seems to think it's theirs. You think you could just walk right in and take it from them? Yes. This is still showing you that Thor has not learned his lesson. Thor is not learning yet. He still thinks that he is a privileged firstborn brat that gets to do what he wants. He's just limited in ways. And the pet store scene has an actor you aren't supposed to mention on YouTube. Why not? Honestly, I do not understand why not. So if you could please tell me more, Rambling Doc J. I will not read it aloud if I, or to be safe, just put it in the comments. And I'll just read it to myself and say, okay then. But yeah, Jane is stopped by Selvig, and he's like, he's delusional, Jane. He's talking about Thor, the Bifrost, and Mjolnir. These are the stories I grew up with as a child. And he's dangerous. And so she won't drive him out there. Even though he's offered, he's like, if you take me there now, I'll tell you everything you want to know. Okay, that's his name, so why can't he be mentioned on YouTube? So yeah, he's like, well then this is where we part ways. Or Miss Foster, or Jane Foster, Eric Selvig, Darcy, farewell. And he bows to him, and freaking Kat Dennings is just, she's like, she's like, yeah. And so she gives her a little curtsy, and they move off. And so then when he's not able to get out there, he's like, he goes into the pet store. This is basically leading up to it. And he's like, I need a horse. We don't have horses, just pets, or just dogs, cats, birds. Well, then give me one of those large enough to ride. Guy's looking at him like he's nuts. You still need a ride? I mean, you also see that, but before that, you see that people are or S.H.I.E.L.D. is rated Jane Foster's place. Coulson comes in. He's like, Miss Foster, I'm Agent Coulson from S.H.I.E.L.D. And Selvage like, oh, shit. Because she's visibly agitated. She's getting her stuff stolen. How would you feel, And it's done well. Her acting Natalie Portman's acting in this moment where it's like, this should more than compensate you for your trouble. I just can't buy this shit at Radio Shack. I made all this equipment myself, and I'm sure you can do it again. She crushes the check. And she's like, and I'm pretty sure I could sue you for violating my constitutional rights. Technically, she probably could. They're invested because he's like, this is a national security threat. Okay, you get to, or are you going to tell us what the hell it is? Because I haven't done shit. And she knows that she hasn't done shit. She could have easily challenged everyone in court, possibly even. But he's like, or Selvig tries to tell her, this is a lot more serious than you realize. Let it go. Let it go. This is my life. People who are on the cusp of something that is truly amazing, as she says, understanding something extraordinary, telling them to let it go, telling them to just drop it and move on, never going to work. But she's like, or they also take her journal or her book, and what I know is either in this stuff or on this book, and you can't just take that from me. So they just freaking take it and put it, hey! Kenneth Branagh never wastes a shot. Oh, okay, yeah. Thank you, Rambling Doc J. I now understand why they don't want people talking about him or naming him. Okay, I can understand that, yeah. Not gonna pull the pin on that grenade. All right, Rambling Doc J. I got a notification your stream will yeah. He never wastes a camera shot. He always gets great performances and even made a live-action Cinderella watchable film or watchable and fun. I'll have to check that out. Holy shit. But yes. So they're on the roof of their place. Years of research gone. They even took my iPod. And who are these people? I had a colleague, pioneer in gamma radiation. S.H.I.E.L.D. showed up and he was never heard from again. He's talking about Bruce Banner, I'm guessing. Because, Bruce was the only pioneer in gamma radiation. So yeah, that's a nice little setup from one of the previous movies, The Hulk, or The Incredible Hulk. So Darcy just feels like chiming in. Just download like 30 songs, and would you please stop with your iPod? We can't let them get away with this. I'll reach out. I have a colleague who's had dealings with these people. I'll send them an email, and we'll see what they took your laptop too. So he has to go into the library to send a freaking email, and he finds in the kids section Norse Myths and Legends, the book. And he scoffs at it because he realizes this is nuts. But while he's doing that, Jane picks up Thor. They're going out to the crater site, and he's like, you think me strange? Yeah, I do. Good, strange, or bad? I'm not quite sure yet. And she's kind of, that she's crushing on him too because, taking your eyes off the road is an indication that you want more attention on this person. So yeah, so he's like, what you're looking for is a bridge, like an Einstein-Rosen bridge, more like a rainbow bridge. Well, that is the same thing technically, but he's not known to scientific language yet. And I do love how they bring him to the crater site. It's like, that's no satellite crash. They would have hauled the wreckage away, not built a city around it. And you understand that Mjolnir, with its power, is interfering with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s stuff. Their equipment is very tampered with because of the radiation or power that Mjolnir is giving off. So, you also understand that Mjolnir is literally activating itself because of. Hold on one second. Interesting. Yes, Mjolnir is actually starting to thrum a little bit more because it senses that Thor is near. And you also get the storm because Thor, it suggests that the storm is Thor's doing or even the hammer's doing. And I do like that they keep it ambiguous. So as Thor is like, what, you just, or she's like, what, you just think you're going to walk in there, take what you need, and get out? No, I'm going to fly out. I'm like, she's thinking he's crazy. But he gets in there, he starts wrecking people's shit and starts fighting, and you get the wonderful freaking introduction to everybody's favorite Avenger. Not really, but you get the introduction to Hawkeye. I need somebody or eyes up high with a gun. And you see that this guy grabs the rifle, but then stops and grabs the bow. So it's like, okay. Now, I didn't know who Hawkeye was when I first started watching these movies. I'm not a comic book person too much. Thor, Love and Thunder, female queen of Asgard, controlling Mjolnir. Valkyrie is the proper one. That's a whole nother story for another thing. I don't think I'm really looking forward to Thorina, Love and Thunder in the female Thor movie. I don't like the fact that Taika Waititi is attached to it. I mean, as good as a person he is, he did threaten to ruin everybody's. He did literally threaten to ruin everybody's time with the movie. The comic was Jane got cancer and Thor gave her powers to cure the cancer to keep her alive. Actually, that's not what happens. Rambling. What happens was Nick Fury whispered something in Thor's ear, which literally made him unworthy to hold the hammer. So, realizing that somebody needed to take up the hammer, Jane also refused any magical help from Thor because she realized that, or she knows that magic comes at a cost. He could have taken her to Asgard, or he offered to take her to Asgard so that they could cure her cancer, and she said no. So when she grabs Mjolnir and turns into Thor, her cancer is gone, or is frozen, I guess, so to speak. But when she relinquishes the hammer, all the radiation in her body that was help treating the cancer is gone because Asgardians are immune to radiation. Yes, so she's killing herself the more she becomes Thor. Anyway, back to the movie Thor. When Thor gets to the hammer and he feels that, or he's fighting the guy in the mud wrestling and all that stuff, and you also see Agent Barton up there, Clint, who is Hawkeye. He's like, want me to slow him down, sir, or are you sending more people in there for him to beat up? I'll let you know. And he's like, you better call it, Coulson, because I'm starting to root for this guy. And he then gets more serious. He's like, he's like, last chance, sir. Wait, I want to see this. So Thor thinks that he can finally go home. He actually thinks that this is his test. Going through that area, this is his test to go home. And so when he grabs a hammer and it's not budging, and he struggles with it, and then he just lets out this rage at the sky because he doesn't understand why. And then he just gives up. You feel that emotion. You feel that hurt, that heartbreak that he is feeling. It is such a brilliant performance. The acting quality is there. So when when they go and move in to arrest him, he looks up at the hammer, and the hammer reveals the triquetra of Odin's decree. Basically, Mjolnir is saying to him, I wish I could, but I can't. Your father has basically said not to let you back yet. You are not ready. And it's true. He's not yet ready. He hasn't learned to be humble. Wonderful thing about my channel, folks, I value humility a lot. It's why I follow most of the people I follow. They're very humble. Yeah, I don't like Taika Waititi. I think he's an overrated director. He has skill, that can't be denied. But he is a dangerous director because he's like, I'll wreck your fanship in a minute, baby. Him threatening that horse shit tells me flat out they should have got somebody else. You don't make that threat to fans. But anyway, so Coulson's interviewing Thor. Thor's not telling him squat, well, because he's kind of heartbroken. Also, Jane seeing this. And then you also see you see a close-up of Heimdall's eye of literally the facility that was in, or that Thor was in. You see that reflected in Heimdall's eye. Heimdall was watching the whole thing. And you get this feeling that even Heimdall can feel Thor's anguish at this point. Because he could hear it, see it, and everything. Heimdall can literally see across the universe. And hear across the universe, you know? So, yes. You get the hammer or Thor was not ready. And the hammer knows that Thor is not ready. He's like, you are not ready to come home. I can't let you home. Or I can't let you go home. So, Coulson's like, who are you? Where'd you receive your training from? You tore through my men like they were freaking amateur mall cops. That's hurtful. It's a good little comedic bit from Coulson. And then you get the traitorous little asshole, what's his name? He's like, they got a visitor. And he's like, his name is Dr. Jonathan Blake. That's a shout out to the comics, because in the comics, Thor actually does have a human persona. Or Donald Blake, rather, not Jonathan Blake, sorry. Yep, man. Good morning, Price is Right. Good to see you. And one of the best Stanley cameos is this movie. Yes, did cover that, where he tries pulling his truck and getting his truck destroyed because of it. But yes, there's like Dr. Donald Blake. And they're looking at it. You guys took all of our resources. It's like years of his stuff just gone. So you can imagine it thugs, and he's up. Coulson just looks at him. He's like, that's how he put it. Doesn't explain how he managed to tear through our security. Steroids! He's a bit of a fitness nut. That entire conversation was hilarious. So they then get a match, and you see it in freaking clear, say falsified data plus the picture that Darcy took. And it says here he's an MD. Well, he was. He switched managers and became a physicist. I mean, he's a man, or this is a man in pain, and you just gotta let him go. And so they get him, and while this is going on, before that happened, Loki lies to Thor, basically saying, it was so cruel to put the hammer within your reach knowing you could never lift it. He's like, is it you, or what a father? Father is dead. What? Your banishment, the upcoming war with Jotunheim was too much. Loki lies to Thor, basically to make him think that he could never come home. Of all the Stan Lee cameos in Marvel, which one is my favorite? Well, give me a second. I'm going to go through them all in my head. This will actually not take as long as you think. What was the one in Iron Man? What was the one in Iron Man 2? Well, skip that one for now. Honestly, I would say that the one in the Incredible Hulk, It's very small. It's very mundane. He takes drinks like, wow, what? But it's a wonderful thing that he does. Or it's just a wonderful, small, little, simple performance. I mean, Stan Lee does great cameos. He has always been a wonderful person. But for some reason, the most simple one is my favorite, where he just takes a drink of one of those sodas and is like, wow, oh shit, I'm dead. Basically, yeah. Are you Tony Stank? Captain America Civil War. But yes. So he tells him that Mother has forbid your return. The truce with Jotunheim is conditional upon your exile and whatnot. You can't come back. And so Loki tries taking the hammer and realizing he can't lift it. And so then he looks up. Him looking up is basically him saying, oh, okay, Heimdall might be watching. Now, at this point, he has also gone to Jotunheim with the Bifrost, and he talks with Laufey to make the truce that he's like, they're like, kill him. After all I've done for you? So you're the one who let our people in who let our men in Asgard. That was just a bit of fun, really. To spoil my brother's big day and to keep the realms safer from his idiotic rule for a while longer. Laufey, now this is father and son, and they don't even, Loki knows it is his father, but Laufey does not know this. Some really killer soda. Exactly. Anyway, how's it going, bro? It's going good, Kamen Rider. Good to see you. And so he's like, I'll conceal you and a handful of your men, lead you into Odin's chamber, and you can slay him where he lies. Why not kill him yourself? I don't think the Asgardians would take kindly to a king who just murdered his predecessor. Once the casket is returned, or once Odin is dead, I will return the casket to you. That gets Laufey's attention. Comfior plays Laufey very well, where he just starts to sit up. He perks up real quick, and you can return Jotunheim to its glory. I accept. And yeah, it is. And then when he returns, he's like, what troubles you, gatekeeper? I turned my gaze upon you in Jotunheim, but could neither see you nor hear you. You are shrouded from me, like the Jotuns who entered this realm. Perhaps you've grown weaker in your many years of service. Or perhaps someone has found a way to stop me from seeing what they don't wish me to see. And this back and forth, this is Thor, the Dark World, or Ragnarok. This is the first Thor, Price is Right. This is the first Thor, and that I'm going over. So he's like, did Odin ever fear you? No. And why is that? Because he is my king, and I was sworn to obey him. He was your king, and now you're sworn to obey me now. Yes? You see the hesitancy in Heimdall. Yes. Then you will open the Bifrost to no one until I can undo the damage my brother has done. Now, again, I stress that I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Good to see you, memes. Now, you see that, or remember, folks, if you listen to Heimdall's voice in this movie and in the other two movies, you will notice a difference. They actually modulated his voice to make it deeper. So, back on Earth, or back in the moment just before Thor gets out of there with Selvig, as he's leaving, he grabs Jane's journal. And Coulson, he's like, Dr. Selvig, keep him away from the bars. I will. Where are we going? To get a drink. And so they get their drink and whatnot. And there is an extension to that scene where you see frickin' Selvig after the Boilermakers. He's drunk, so he grabs that huge flask and just smashes another, and it perks Thor up. He's realizing, he's like, my father tried to teach me something, and I was too blind and stupid to see it. And you learn a bit about Selvig. It's good character building. I care about Jane. I see the way she looks at you and whatnot, and he wants Thor to leave that night. Idris Elba is a sexy man. That's one way of putting it. He did well as Heimdall. He did well as Heimdall in the first and second movie. He does well as Heimdall in the third movie, and well, he dies well in Infinity War. So then comes the scene with Loki and Jotunheim, but also as Thor. Idiots out there again. But okay, interesting how none of the Thor films shows Loki's son, the world serpent who kills Thor in Norse mythology. Yes, I am very much aware of Jormungand. And who the heck is messaging me? Ooh. It's my love. Anyway, morning. But yes, so he brings Selvig, who is drunk as a skunk, and there's a lovely deleted scene where they're singing a nice song, and that's how Selvig passes out. And then he talks with Jane, and Jane is happy that Thor got to return her thing. He's like, I'm sorry, it wasn't as much as I promised. She's like, no, this is great. I don't have to start from scratch now. But she's still heartbroken. This dialogue between Thor and Jane is actually about Freddie Prinze Jr. is kind of depressing. I already did a video on that, Kamen Rider, and I also don't really want to discuss it in this video. Hold on, folks. Folks, I have to take care of something. I will be right back. Small intermission. So, yeah, just be patient with me, and I shall be back. Do not go anywhere. Sorry about that, folks. Had to help my aunt. So yes. Okay, I'm back. Where were we? So it powered up it's like she. Yes. So we are gonna move along. I can't keep going scene by scene, but basically the dialogue between Jane in the scene where he gives her back the journal and the score is that softer version of the one that I whistled earlier. And she's looking at him, she's conflicted as he describes Jotunheim and he starts drawing the world's tree Yggdrasil. And she looks at him, she smiles, but she also has this worried look on her face like, is he crazy or this man is literally believes all this stuff? So, yeah, maybe it's possible that he might not be crazy. And he thanks her as she sleeps. He's like, thank you, Jane. So, yes, you see that Thor is starting to learn. He's starting his journey back or to humility. And while after this happens, well, the Warriors 3 basically decide enough is enough. We got to go get Thor. And Lady Sif is there too, and they're like, and Volstag's like, to hell with suicide, or to hell with treason, it's suicide. And he's like, now shush, Heimdall can. Okay, I'm back. Thank God. Sorry about that, folks. My freaking. This is not something that I want to have happen right now. My laptop decided to act retarded. So, yes. Basically, the Warriors 3 get summoned by Heimdall, sorry. And he's like, you defy Loki, or the express command of Loki, our king. Break every oath you've made as warriors and commit treason to bring Thor back. Yes, good. I just love it. Good. And he just walks right out. He's like, I'm bound by honor to our king. I can't open the bridge to you. So the bridge is opened. He already opened it, so technically he did kind of commit treason. So, Loki sees this and he realizes, okay, he's going to have to stop shit. So he goes down to the vault and he gets the destroyer. Ensure my brother does not return. Destroy everything. So does that mean as soon as he leaves the vault, start destroying everything? That is one of the nitpicks that you could put on this movie. But yeah, so they get to Earth and there's a scene where they're walking into town and these two S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are like, is there a Renaissance Festival? Better call it in. Yeah, Base, I got a Xena, Jackie Chan, and Robin Hood. Notice how they didn't talk about Volstagg, but you see Volstagg walking in front of them. If you look closely at Volstagg, you'll see a slight difference in lighting and that he was digitally put in there. Because in the original part of it, he was not in there, and they show in a deleted scene that he walks up behind those two guards and just boop right together, you know? And it shows that they did pay attention to detail. They had to make a sacrifice to the cut. And yeah, so it was a decent cut. And so then you see that Selvig's talking to Jane. It's a brilliant theory, Jane, but good luck trying to convince the rest of the scientific community of it. Found you! They had knocked on the door, and you actually see Hogan, who doesn't smile. He's smiling. And everybody's like, oh, this is good. And Thor is happy about this scene. Now, in another deleted scene, Thor asks if he can keep the mug, or a coffee mug that he has. And he brings it back to the diner to Isabel, who owns that diner. And he's like, this is for the one that I smashed. I am sorry about that. And it's a lovely little touch, but it wasn't needed fully in the movie. But it is an extra added point of where Thor is learning to be a better person. And how he is more humble now. It was a great thing in there. So when the Warriors 3 find him and he's like, I can't go back. You know I can't. My father's dead because of me and my mother has forbade my return. Sif explains to him, yeah, your father's still alive. He's just in the Odin slave. So this is where he has actually learned that, Loki lied to him. Now Loki is confronting Heimdall. This was a beautiful scene here too, because the back and forths between characters are important in this movie, and they work to a degree that it doesn't feel cumbersome, where it also sets up plot points for later films. Tell me, Loki, how did you get the Jotuns into Asgard? There are pathways so secret that even you, with all your knowledge or with all your abilities, are blind. But I have need of them no longer now that I am king. And I say, for your act of treason, you are no longer a citizen of, or you are banished from your position as gatekeeper and no longer citizen of Asgard. Then I have no need to obey you. And he just attacks Loki, but Loki uses the cat his Jotun look, or his Jotun skin with the blue and the red eyes. And then he brings the Jotuns into Asgard. So but before he does that, he sends the Destroyer back down to Earth, and Coulson and S.H.I.E.L.D. are looking at the arrival point where the Warriors 3 arrived, and then they're there to see the Destroyer get there. It's like, is that one of Stark's? I don't know. The guy never tells me anything. And he's like, hello, you're using unregistered weapons technology. Identify yourself. The face opens. And it's like, here we go. And then it starts burning, and it's like, incoming! I love how they freak out, and the Destroyer you really feel a sense of danger from from the Destroyer. When he arrives, and you see the tornado cast him down in, and you see Darcy, was somebody else coming? You literally get that feeling that something is off, and then you see the Destroyer, and it's like, oh shit. When he starts destroying things, when he starts attacking, you feel the urgency in these films. That is what I keep saying when I say that the phase 1 of the MCU is literally the best, because those movies have put you into this universe in such a way that you invest in it. When you see the Destroyer wreaking havoc and people are trying to urgently get out of the town, and you see the Warriors 3 go up against the Destroyer, Sif puts a sword through its neck, and it just powers down, but then it just powers right back up, literally inverts itself to turn itself around, and it's like, oh shit, okay, this is not gonna work. So there's scenes that are deleted in here where Selvig gets injured from all the broken glass from the Destroyer going after people, and Thor goes up to Hogan. He's like, you got a healing stone? I need a healing stone. And so you actually see what a healing stone is, because in an extended hospital scene, he's like, just taking up a little blood, and he's like, we're trying to help you. Then get me a healing stone. You savages. But anyway, they use a healing stone on Eric Selvig. That's why he looks like he's being dragged away in the movie, where he kind of does look like he's limping away injured. And Thor decides to confront the Destroyer, and that scene where he's walking up and where he's talking to his brother, he's like, brother, whatever I have done to wrong you, whatever I have done to lead you to do this, I am truly sorry. But these people are innocent. Taking their lives will mean nothing. So take mine and end this. Now you get that, or you see that Loki hears all of this. He's literally using the destroyer as a conduit. And the destroyer, or he sets the destroyer to close up its face, and he makes Thor believe that he's about to leave. So he turns, and then he smacks Thor, and Thor basically dies. A lot of people, I even cried in that scene. How you doing, Phil? Good to see you. And when Jane is there, and you then get a shot to Odin, who is still in his Odin sleep, and you see the tear falling down his face, he's hearing and seeing all that is transpiring around him. So he knows that his will has been done. And the hammer site with where S.H.I.E.L.D. is, the power spiking, and then you get reminded of whoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. And then it just launches like a missile to where it actually looks like a missile. It's, sorry if I'm getting louder, folks. There's people with air cannons to get the leaves off of our patio. But anyway, I feel like first Thor movie is underrated. It truly is underrated. It is more underrated now than it has ever been, because everybody's like, well, it was just the first phase. No, the first phase is what got people into the MCU to begin with. And honestly, it's the best in my opinion. It is better than Civil War and the second phase. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. And I just feel that these movies had a greater impact on me than the later phases. So yeah. So then the hammer flies into Thor's hand and he starts getting back to life because, well, his father, or Thor, is like not able to get to the hammer, so the hammer goes to Thor. It was literally programmed to go to Thor if he is once he is finally ready. And he has learned that a hero will sacrifice himself for the greater good of those he is protecting. So his humility paid off. The first phase I like to call legend because I so love how it started the MCU and they're underappreciated. Well, also Paramount did a wonderful job keeping them real, keeping them more grounded. Where later on, yes, of course, the movies had to get more grandiose and more spacefaring and mystical. I understand that, but the first phase just seemed unburdened by what Disney did to it, you know? So Thor then fights the destroyer, and they have a lovely little sky battle, and they have to return to Asgard. But because, well, Heimdall is frozen, and after Loki brings the Jotuns in, you literally see Heimdall starting to strain and crack the ice, and you also hear him going to break the ice, and he kills the Jotuns and gets them back. The fight when Laufey is about to murder Odin, you get the snake of Loki, where Loki just betrays him and kills him. So now we have, okay, that's my justification for slaughtering the Jotuns and destroying their world. So Thor comes back and confronts him in front of their mother, so she now knows the truth. And he's like, now if you excuse me, I have to go destroy Jotunheim, and blast his brother, and so they have to fight. Now Loki uses the casket to freeze the lightning and Gungnir in place to keep the Bifrost building. And Thor asks him, why are you doing this? To prove the father that I am a worthy son. By the time he awakes, I will have destroyed Jotunheim and eradicated those monsters, and I will then be seen as heir to the throne. And he's like, you can't kill an entire race. Why not? You could have crushed them with your bare hands. And he's like, I've changed. So have I. And he smacks him, trying to get his brother to fight him. And he's like, I never wanted a throne. I always wanted to be your equal. you see the motive behind Loki. He's finally saying what he's always wanted to say. And he's like, I'm not going to fight you, brother. I'm not your brother. I never was. This is madness. Is it madness? What happened on Earth to make you so soft? Don't tell me it was that woman. And then he's like, oh, it was. Well, then maybe after or when I'm done here, I'll pay her a visit myself. That does get Thor to go in. The fight between them is actually very well done, but it also does kind of seem a little bit clunky because of the armor that they're in. And you just feel that there is a wire work. So there is objective flaw to this movie. However, it is still done well. And the illusions of Loki after they get blasted out of the Bifrost sphere and how Thor then breaks through that and puts the hammer on him is funny, but he then realizes he needs the hammer to stop this from happening. You also see that, or in the space, you start to see space start to twist around the area where the Bifrost is destroying Jotunheim. And it's starting to form an abyss. Now, there is another error in this part of the film, which when Thor takes his first swing and starts destroying the Bifrost and starts striking the bridge, Loki tells him, he's like, if you destroy the bridge, you'll never see her again. And then he goes to try to stab his brother, but it doesn't work because, well, he finally breaks it through. Odin has woken up on the first swing of Mjolnir and is then fully armored and grabs his son to stop them both from going over. Now, if you pay attention, the Bifrost was pointing forward toward Jotunheim and tearing the fabric of space and time, or tearing space, where when it finally collapses and falls, it's falling downward to that same abyss that was twisting in space. So it's like, oh crap, how do you explain that, you know? Well, they didn't explain it, except that it basically formed an abyss. So Loki tries to, or sees his father, he's like, I could have done it, father. I could have done it for you, for all of us. And, well, Odin already knew what was going on. He's like, no, Loki. And Loki realized, well, I can't get away with it, so screw them all. And he lets go, and Thor still cares for Loki. He loves him like a brother. He always has. And he's like, Loki, no. And then he cries and so does Odin. They both are broken because Loki decided to let go, and he falls into that abyss as the abyss closes. Now, Jotunheim was spared, of course, and the aftermath, unfortunately, leaves the Bifrost destroyed, which Thor did promise to return to Jane. You see him while he's breaking it say, forgive me, Jane. Now, unfortunately, they realize that he's not coming back. So, in Valhalla, you see the Warriors 3, and you see them, or you see Volstagg telling the tale of his fight with the Destroyer, embellishing. And you also see Thor walk through. He gives his mother's hand a meaningful grasp and then walks on. Sif follows suit, and she's like, my queen, I'm so sorry for your loss. And you hear a voiceover, how is he? He mourns his brother, but he misses her, the mortal. And in Jamie Alexander's voice, her tone, her cadence, you actually understand that she is confused about this. How can Thor care for a mortal so much, you know? And he goes up to his father, and his father tells him, you'll be a wise king one of these days, or you'll be a wise king. There will be no one wiser or better than you. I have much to learn. I know that now, and I hope that one day I may make you proud. Odin, looking down as his son is telling him this, he's going over what his son is telling him. You can see all that he is feeling of it. And when he says, hopefully one day I'll make you proud, you see that smile. And him turn to him You've already made me proud. So then they return, or he goes to Heimdall. Heimdall's still on his watch, but with the broken Bifrost. And he's like, so Earth is lost to us? No, there's always hope. And that is also such an emotion. I can actually feel my tears starting to well from this emotion of this scene where he's like, can you see her? Yes. And Darcy, Selvig, and Foster are starting to get their stuff together, and he's like, she searches for you. And the emotional score that they have for the credits of this sequence, where it's taking you through space and the cosmos, it is such a beautiful score. It really brings out the percussion, the music, all of it. It is just so freaking beautifully done. And it takes you out wide from all the cosmos, Earth, Midgard, Asgard, Vanheim, Jotunheim, all of them, and you literally see Yggdrasil, the world's tree, in space, and it is like a humongous nebula that is shaped like a massive tree. And I'm like, holy crap, that is beautiful. Now, they also had the stinger at the end where Selvig is brought before Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they're introduced to the Tesseract. And one thing I didn't understand was Loki's presence there. Because Loki fell into Abyss, we don't know what happened to him, but this thing also doesn't play well with what goes on later. He's there, and you see that he influences Selvig. Well, I guess that's worth a look. And then you hear Selvig repeat the same thing. And then that's the end of the movie. This movie's objective quality is around a 9 to a 9.5. It has mistakes, yes, but I feel that the movie was still well done. Now, subjectively, it's 10.10, or it's a 10 out of 10. And I truly enjoy it. These movies really cemented my interest in the MCU when the MCU first came out. And the MCU's first phase still resonates or gets me to show the emotions when I watch them that I did when I first watched them. I still get the tears. I still get the build behind the nose. I still get the well up of goosebumps. All of that from watching the first phase. Because the frickin' scores, the movies, the acting, the casting, it was all well done. I don't get that as much from phase 2 or phase 3. I just don't. You know? And I get somebody who's being very persistent right now. Oh, Jesus. But yeah. Anyway, folks, that is the end of Thor, and I really enjoyed this movie. It is truly underappreciated, and my recommendation, if you guys have it, watch it today. It is really a good movie that, if pay attention to the score, see if you can get the same emotions welling up just by the score alone. It is truly a wonderful film that brings emotion to you, gives you a sense of excitement and wonder. It really is. Believe it or to make a comparison, dare I do, the look that Omega from the Bad Batch has when she's looking out at space and just as they enter hyperspace and she sees it for the first time, that is basically the look of what I felt, the wonderment from watching this movie when I first seen it in theaters, and even as I see it today, because I just watched it today and last night so I could do this review and discussion. And I want to thank everyone for being a part of this discussion. Phil, Junebug, Ramblin' Doc J, Mara, thank you all and everyone else who have come in here. And thank you for sharing it out as much as you guys did. I truly appreciate the the attention that my mystery reviews have been getting, and I think I am going to try to do it as often as I can while I am down with my aunt and stuff. So yes, definitely stay tuned for next week when I do another one. So, and stay tuned for tomorrow night when I do my versus stream of Hulk versus, or World War Hulk versus Doomsday. Anyway, folks, that is going to be my review. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for leaving a like and viewing this stream. You guys are what keep me going. You guys are literally helping me more than you really know. And one day I feel that I will tell you just how much. But until then, folks, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section if you're catching it in the replay. Let me know all your thoughts, folks. This has been Orange Hat Reviews. Stay humble.